David Thomas had always loved the quiet streets of Maplewood Estates. It was a neighborhood where children played safely in their yards, where neighbors waved to each other while walking their dogs, and where the sunlight fell gently on the rows of neat houses. For David, this calm life was exactly what he wanted. He had moved here with his wife Sarah a few years ago, hoping to enjoy peace after years of hectic city living. The house they bought was not the biggest, but it had charm. The garden was small yet bright with flowers, and the front porch had a swing where they could sit on warm evenings. Life was simple and happy. Over the years, however, David had begun to notice that life in Maplewood Estates came with more rules than he had expected. The Homeowners Association, often called the HOA, sent letters frequently. These letters reminded residents about lawn heights, paint colors, mailbox styles, and even the type of decorations allowed during holidays. David tried to follow every rule. He mowed the lawn every Saturday morning, painted the mailbox a bright but approved color, and even made sure that his holiday lights were in the exact style permitted. Yet despite his best efforts, he occasionally received notes suggesting small violations. He assumed these were just minor complaints from neighbors who enjoyed pointing out every little detail. One Tuesday afternoon, David was fixing the kitchen sink. A small leak had developed over the weekend, and he was determined to repair it before it caused any trouble. He knelt on the floor with a wrench in hand, his sleeves rolled up and water dripping slightly onto the tiled floor. The sound of running water mixed with the occasional tapping of his tools. It was a quiet day, peaceful in every way except for a slight feeling of unease that David could not explain. Suddenly, there was a firm knock on the front door. David froze, wrench in hand. Knock, knock. The sound was sharp and official. He put down the wrench and wiped his hands with a towel. Who could that be? He thought. The idea of a friend visiting crossed his mind, but it was too early for neighbors to drop by unexpectedly. David opened the door cautiously. Standing there were two uniformed police officers. They were tall, serious-looking men with expressions that suggested they did not expect to be greeted with casual friendliness. Their eyes scanned the house behind David before they even spoke. "Mr. David Thomas?" one of the officers asked, his voice calm but firm. "Yes, that's me," David replied, trying to keep his tone steady. He felt a small knot of anxiety form in his stomach. "Is there a problem?" The officer cleared his throat and shifted slightly. "We are here on a complaint from the Homeowners Association. They say there has been a violation of community rules at this address." David's brow furrowed. He had tried so hard to follow the rules. Was this about the flowers in the garden? Or maybe something about the mailbox? He hoped it was something minor. "I see," David said, stepping aside to let the officers enter. "Please come in. I am sure we can sort this out quickly." The officers stepped inside, their shoes making quiet sounds on the wooden floor. David led them into the living room, trying to appear calm, although his heart beat faster with every step. He wanted to explain that he had followed all the rules, yet he could not stop thinking about what kind of complaint would send police officers to his door. As the officers looked around the living room, their eyes seemed to search for any hint of wrongdoing. David noticed that one of them kept glancing toward the hallway that led to the kitchen. He could almost feel the tension in the air. The officers had clearly expected something, but David did not know what. At that moment, the living room door opened and Sarah stepped out. She was wearing her police uniform, neat and tidy. The sight of her made the entire room change instantly. Her presence commanded attention without effort. Her badge gleamed slightly in the afternoon light, and her posture was calm but strong. David felt a small smile tug at his lips, knowing exactly what the officers were about to experience. The two officers froze. Their eyes widened in surprise, and for a moment, they seemed unsure how to proceed. David watched silently, his own heartbeat quickening with amusement. He had never seen people so taken aback by a uniform before. "Hello?" Sarah said, her voice steady and polite. "How can I help you today?" The officer who had first spoken seemed to struggle for words. We are here regarding a complaint from the HOA," he stammered slightly. Sarah nodded slowly. "I understand. May I ask what the complaint is about?" Her tone was calm, professional, and unshakable. David could see the officers exchange glances, clearly unsure how to handle the situation. David stepped slightly to the side, letting Sarah take the lead. He felt a mix of pride and amusement. This was exactly the moment he had hoped for, although he had no idea how it would play out. One of the officers cleared his throat again, trying to regain composure. They claim that there have been repeated violations. Details were not specified, but we were asked to check in and ensure everything is in order. Sarah tilted her head slightly, her expression polite but serious. I see, thank you for letting us know. I am happy to review any concerns. Could you please show me the complaint or documentation from the HOA? The officers looked at each other, clearly unsure. Their hands fidgeted slightly and one of them adjusted his cap. It was obvious that Sarah's uniform and authority had caught them off guard. They were expecting a simple homeowner, not a trained officer standing before them. David quietly observed the scene. He felt a warm sense of relief. At least now the situation would be handled calmly and fairly. He trusted Sarah to manage it with wisdom and poise. She had always been confident in her role, and now it seemed her presence was more than enough to change the entire energy of the room. After a few moments, Sarah continued. I want to make sure everything is resolved properly. Please leave the documents with me and I will review them. If any further action is needed, we can address it together. I am sure we can find a solution that satisfies the HOA without unnecessary steps. The officers nodded slowly. They seemed relieved that Sarah was taking the lead and careful not to overstep. One of them cleared his throat again. Yes, of course. We can leave the paperwork here. He handed Sarah the documents with a slight bow of respect. David could not stop a small laugh from forming at the corner of his mouth. He had never imagined that a visit from the police would turn into such a humorous yet satisfying moment. The HOA might have expected tension or confrontation, but instead they had encountered Sarah, firm, confident, and composed. Sarah glanced at David briefly, a small smile shared between them. It was a quiet moment of understanding. They both knew that life could throw unexpected challenges, but together, they could face anything. The officers lingered for a moment longer, making sure nothing else required their attention. Finally, they nodded once more and left, walking carefully down the porch steps. David watched them go, feeling the tension drain from his body. Once the door closed, David turned to Sarah. You were amazing, he said, his voice filled with admiration and relief. Sarah laughed softly. It was simple, she said. Just a little professionalism. They didn't expect it. David shook his head, still smiling. I never imagined the HOA would send cops to our door, but you handled it perfectly. They stood together for a moment, enjoying the quiet house again. The sunlight streamed through the windows. The garden outside looked calm, and for the first time that day, David felt completely relaxed. He realized that life in Maplewood Estates might be full of small surprises, but with Sarah by his side, nothing could really unsettle him. That day, David learned a lesson he would never forget. Authority and respect were powerful, but they were even stronger when combined with calmness and confidence. The HOA might continue to send notices, and life might continue to present challenges, but with patience, understanding, and a little bit of humor, every problem could be handled in the right way. As the afternoon faded into evening, David and Sarah sat on their porch swing. The warm breeze moved through the trees and the neighborhood felt peaceful once again. David felt grateful for his wife, for their home, and for the reminder that sometimes the best way to handle unexpected situations was simply to remain calm and stand together. The next morning, David woke up early, as usual. The sun had just begun to rise over Maplewood Estates, casting a soft golden glow across the neat lawns and quiet streets. He brewed his coffee and stepped onto the porch, enjoying the calm. Yet a small worry lingered in the back of his mind. The visit from the police officers had been unusual, and he wondered if the HOA might respond with more letters, complaints, or even another unexpected visit. Sarah joined him shortly, her uniform replaced by casual clothes for the day. She carried a tray with 2 steaming cups of coffee. Morning, she said with a gentle smile. Sleep well? David nodded, taking a sip of the hot coffee. As well as I could. But I keep thinking about yesterday. Do you think the HOA will try anything else? Sarah shook her head, settling onto the swing beside him. Honestly, I don't think so. They probably didn't expect what happened. I handled the paperwork, and they know the officers checked everything. I think they will hesitate before causing more trouble. David relaxed a little at her words. Sarah's confidence was reassuring. You were amazing yesterday. They froze completely when you came out in uniform. I've never seen anything like it. Sarah laughed softly. It was surprising for them, yes. But it was just a matter of presence and calmness. They expected tension, maybe a homeowner arguing, but I gave them a professional response. That's all it took. The couple sipped their coffee in quiet contentment. Outside, the neighborhood was beginning to wake. A few children rode their bikes past the houses, their laughter echoing lightly. A neighbor walked his dog down the street, waving as he passed. Maplewood Estates looked just as peaceful as it always had. And for a moment, David almost forgot the unusual events of the previous day. But later that morning, a letter arrived in their mailbox. David retrieved it with a small sense of caution. The envelope was neat and official, bearing the HOA's logo. He opened it carefully, his fingers trembling slightly. Sarah glanced at him. "Another complaint?" she asked. David shook his head as he read the letter aloud. It says, "We are concerned about the compliance of your property with community rules. Please contact the HOA immediately." That's all it says. No details, no explanation, nothing. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Typical. They like to create stress without reason. But we handled it yesterday. I will call the HOA and clarify everything. There is no reason for this letter to worry us. David nodded, feeling slightly better. He trusted Sarah to handle the situation calmly, as she had done before. Good, I'll finish some yard work while you make the call. Sarah picked up her phone and dialed the HOA office. David returned to the garden, trimming flowers and sweeping the walkway. He kept glancing at the house, waiting to see if Sarah would need him. She spoke softly during the call, her voice steady and polite. Occasionally, David could hear her laugh lightly, which made him smile. It was clear she had the situation under control. After about 20 minutes, Sarah hung up the phone. She turned to David with a triumphant smile. They are satisfied now. Apparently, they didn't realize an officer lived in the house. They won't contact the police again. I made it clear that any further complaints should go through me, not the officers, and that seemed to settle things. David laughed in relief. I can't believe it. The HOA sent police here because of small complaints, and all it took was you stepping in to handle it. Sarah shook her head, smiling. It wasn't about me. It was about handling things professionally and calmly. Sometimes people expect conflict, but when they see reason, they step back. The rest of the morning passed quietly. David finished the yard work, and Sarah helped him carry potted plants to the porch. They laughed as a few flowers fell from their pots, landing softly on the ground. Life seemed normal again, almost as if the events of yesterday had been a strange dream. By afternoon, neighbors began to emerge. One by one, they stopped to greet David and Sarah. Some were curious, having heard rumors about the police visit. Others simply wanted to chat. David and Sarah answered politely, sharing a simple explanation. There was a misunderstanding, but everything is fine now, they said. The neighbors nodded, some raising eyebrows in surprise, but most smiled and moved along. In the evening, the couple sat in the living room reflecting on the day. You know, David said thoughtfully, I think this whole thing has taught me something important. Sometimes people create problems that don't really exist. They expect tension, but a calm approach can solve almost anything. Sarah nodded. Exactly. It's not about power or authority. It's about understanding and handling things wisely. The HOA thought they were being serious, maybe even intimidating. But when faced with logic and professionalism, their approach lost its effect. David smiled, feeling grateful. I feel lucky to have you by my side. You make everything easier. Sarah laughed lightly. We make a good team. That's what matters. The next morning brought another surprise. David opened the door to find the HOA president standing outside. He was a man in his 50s wearing a crisp shirt and tie, looking slightly uncomfortable. Mr. Thomas, the president said politely, I wanted to apologize for the recent confusion. We were unaware of the situation and did not intend to cause alarm. We appreciate your cooperation, and we will ensure that future communications are clear and reasonable. David nodded politely. Thank you. I am sure everything will be fine now. Sarah stepped out from behind David, smiling warmly. We appreciate your understanding. We are happy to work with the HOA to maintain a positive community. The president looked slightly surprised to see her. Oh, I did not realize, he began, but Sarah interrupted gently. It's all right. The important thing is that we communicate clearly and respectfully. He nodded and left, and David and Sarah closed the door with a sense of relief. David laughed softly. That went better than I imagined. Days passed and life returned to normal. David and Sarah continued their routines, tending the garden, walking the neighborhood, and enjoying simple moments together. Yet the incident with the HOA and the police had left a lasting impression. It reminded them that calmness, professionalism, and a little confidence could resolve conflicts better than anger or fear. One evening, as the sun set behind the trees casting a warm orange glow, David and Sarah sat on their porch swing. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves and the distant sound of children playing floated through the air. You know, David said thoughtfully, I think we've earned a little peace now, but I also know that life in Maplewood Estates will always have surprises. Sarah smiled. True, but we can handle them together. Every challenge is easier when we stay calm and face it wisely. David nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. I'm glad we're together for all of it. The neighborhood, once tense with small rules and complaints, now felt welcoming and calm. David and Sarah understood that their home was more than just a house. It was a place where trust, respect, and teamwork created a safe and happy environment. The events with the HOA had tested them, but they had emerged stronger and more confident, ready to face whatever might come next with patience and wisdom. By the end of the week, even the children in the neighborhood seemed to notice a change. Their laughter sounded freer, the neighbors greeted each other more openly, and Maplewood Estates regained its peaceful charm. David and Sarah continued their daily lives, knowing that a single moment of calm and confidence could transform a situation completely. For David, it was more than just resolving a complaint. It was a lesson in life. He realized that problems often appear bigger than they are. People sometimes act out of misunderstanding or fear. But with patience, understanding, and a steady presence, almost any challenge could be overcome. As the couple prepared for the weekend, they looked at each other and smiled, feeling ready for anything. The house was quiet, the garden bright, and the neighborhood safe. Life in Maplewood Estates continued, peaceful and happy, with David and Sarah knowing that together they could handle anything that came their way. A few days after the incident with the police and the HOA, David and Sarah settled back into their routine. The mornings were quiet. The sunlight fell gently over the lawns, and the neighbors went about their day with cheerful greetings. Maplewood Estates seemed peaceful again, as if nothing unusual had happened. But life in the neighborhood had a way of keeping surprises ready, and this time the surprise came from the HOA itself. It was a Thursday afternoon when David received another letter. Unlike the previous one, this envelope was thicker, and it seemed more formal. He carried it inside carefully and handed it to Sarah, who was arranging flowers in a vase on the kitchen counter. Sarah glanced at the envelope, noting the HOA's logo on the front. She opened it slowly, reading the contents aloud. It says, Dear Mr. and Mrs. Thomas, the Homeowners Association invites you to participate in a community review meeting. Your cooperation is requested to ensure compliance with all neighborhood standards. David raised an eyebrow. A meeting? After everything that happened? Are they testing us? Sarah smiled gently. Not exactly testing. I think they want to make sure that everything is clear, and that no misunderstandings happen again. Meetings are usually formal, but they can also be an opportunity to handle things calmly and show that we are responsible residents. David nodded, though he felt a small trace of nervousness. He trusted Sarah completely, but he knew that HOA meetings could be tense. Sometimes a few stern words from the president could make people anxious. He hoped this one would go smoothly. The following evening, David and Sarah dressed neatly and drove to the community center, where the meeting was being held. As they entered the room, they noticed several residents already seated. The chairs were arranged in rows facing a long table where the HOA board sat. The president, the same man who had visited their home days earlier, was at the center, looking organized and professional. Good evening, Sarah said politely to the board members as they approached their seats. We are here and ready to participate in the review. The president nodded. Thank you, Mrs. Thomas. Mr. Thomas, we appreciate your attendance. The purpose of this meeting is to review community standards, discuss any concerns, and ensure that all residents understand the rules. We want to maintain a positive and harmonious environment for everyone. David noticed that the president glanced at the documents in front of him nervously. Perhaps he remembered the last visit and was uncertain how David and Sarah would respond during this formal meeting. One of the board members began speaking, outlining rules about lawn care, mailbox colors, and decorations. It was clear that the HOA took these matters very seriously. Some residents nodded along, taking notes, while others exchanged quiet murmurs about their own experiences. When it came to David and Sarah's turn, the president hesitated slightly before addressing them. "Mr. and Mrs. Thomas, there have been a few past concerns regarding your property. We would like to hear your perspective and ensure that everything is in compliance." Sarah leaned forward politely, her hands folded on the table. "Thank you. We have been following all community rules carefully. When there was a concern recently, we worked with the HOA and the officers to clarify everything. We are committed to maintaining the neighborhood standards." The room grew quiet for a moment. The board members exchanged glances and a few whispered quietly to each other. David noticed their surprise. Sarah spoke clearly and politely, but her presence was calm and confident, which seemed to make everyone in the room reconsider their initial tension. The president cleared his throat. "I see. Thank you for your explanation. We appreciate your cooperation. It is important for all residents to understand that following community standards benefits everyone. We will ensure that future communications are clear and fair." David smiled discreetly at Sarah. She had managed the situation flawlessly. Her calm demeanor and clear explanation had removed any tension in the room. It was evident that the board had expected defensiveness or argument, but they found reason and professionalism instead. After a few more formal discussions about other properties and neighborhood concerns, the meeting concluded. The president thanked all residents for attending and emphasized that cooperation and communication were key to maintaining harmony. David and Sarah left the room feeling relieved and satisfied. As they walked back to their car, David glanced at Sarah. "I am amazed at how well you handled that. You spoke calmly, politely, and firmly. No one could argue with that." Sarah laughed softly. "It's really not difficult. When you remain calm and show understanding, people respond positively. They expected tension, but we gave them reason instead." David nodded. "You make it look easy, but I know it takes confidence and wisdom. I am proud of you." Over the next few days, David and Sarah noticed a change in the neighborhood. Residents greeted them more openly, the HOA seemed less strict in their communications, and life in Maplewood Estates returned to a peaceful rhythm. The couple realized that their handling of the police visit and the meeting had set a tone for the entire community. One afternoon, as David mowed the lawn, he saw a group of neighbors gathered by the community park. They waved and called him over. When he approached, they smiled warmly. "David, Sarah," one of the neighbors said, "we wanted to thank you both for handling everything so well. The meeting was much calmer than we expected because of you. It really helped the community feel more relaxed." David laughed lightly. "It was mostly Sarah. She handled it all." Sarah appeared behind him, smiling. "We are happy to help. Maintaining a positive environment benefits everyone." The neighbors nodded appreciatively and chatted for a while before returning to their activities. David and Sarah stood together watching the children play. They felt a sense of contentment. Their actions had not only resolved the immediate concerns, but also created a better atmosphere for the entire neighborhood. That evening, as they prepared dinner, David reflected on the events of the past week. I think the HOA meant well even if their methods were a little extreme. They just wanted to maintain order." Sarah nodded. "Yes, and sometimes people need guidance, but they also need to see reason. We showed them that calm communication works better than tension. That is an important lesson for everyone." David smiled, feeling grateful. "I never thought that dealing with the HOA could become a learning experience, but it has, and I feel lucky to have you as my partner." Sarah laughed softly. "We make a good team. That's what matters. Together we can handle anything." The next morning, they received another letter in the mailbox. This one was an invitation to a community picnic hosted by the HOA. The note was friendly, expressing appreciation for residents' cooperation and encouraging participation in a fun, relaxed gathering. David handed the letter to Sarah. "Looks like they are trying to make friends now," he joked. Sarah smiled. "It's a positive step. We should attend. It is a chance to connect with neighbors and enjoy the community in a friendly way." The day of the picnic arrived, and David and Sarah joined the gathering at the community park. Tables were set with colorful decorations, children played games, and neighbors shared food and laughter. The atmosphere was light and cheerful, a stark contrast to the tension of the previous weeks. As they walked among the residents, greeting friends and neighbors, David noticed the change in attitude. People were kinder, friendlier, and more open. The events with the police and the meeting had created a sense of respect and understanding. Residents now saw David and Sarah as thoughtful, calm, and cooperative members of the community. During the picnic, the HOA president approached them with a smile. "Mr. and Mrs. Thomas, we wanted to personally thank you for your cooperation and patience over the past week. Your approach helped the community remain calm and positive. We truly appreciate it," David smiled. "Thank you. We are happy to contribute to a positive neighborhood." Sarah nodded. "It is important to communicate with respect and understanding. That benefits everyone." The president shook their hands warmly before moving on to greet other residents. David and Sarah looked at each other, smiling. It had been a long week, but the results were worth every moment. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the park, David and Sarah walked home together. They felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that they had handled challenges wisely and strengthened their community in the process. David glanced at Sarah. "I think we have truly made a difference here. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us." Sarah smiled, taking his hand. "Yes, and the best part is that we did it together. That is what really matters." A few weeks after the community picnic, David and Sarah returned to their regular routines. Life in Maplewood Estates had regained its calm rhythm. Children played in the yards, neighbors greeted each other cheerfully, and the streets felt as peaceful as ever. Yet David knew that in a neighborhood like theirs, surprises could appear when least expected. One sunny morning, while David was washing his car in the driveway, a small envelope slid under the front door. Curious, he picked it up and turned it over in his hands. It had no stamp, only the HOA logo printed neatly on the front. "Sarah," he called as he walked inside, holding the envelope. "Looks like another letter from the HOA." Sarah wiped her hands on a towel and came to see. "Let's open it together," she suggested. David carefully tore open the envelope. Inside was a letter in clear, formal handwriting. "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Thomas, the Homeowners Association has observed recent changes to your garden. While we appreciate your efforts to maintain your property, we request a review of the new plant arrangements. Please contact the HOA to schedule a visit." David frowned slightly. "They want to review our garden? It looks fine to me. The flowers are healthy and the garden looks beautiful." Sarah smiled gently. "Sometimes the HOA is overly cautious. This is not unusual. They probably want to check that everything meets their standards. Let's schedule a visit so we can show them that everything is fine." David nodded, though he felt a mix of amusement and nervousness. The HOA seemed to find new ways to involve themselves in every detail of life in the neighborhood. A few days later, a small team from the HOA arrived at their house. 3 board members, including the president, walked up the driveway. They carried clipboards and notebooks, ready to inspect every corner of the garden. David and Sarah stepped outside to greet them. "Good morning," Sarah said politely. "We are happy to show you our garden." The president nodded. "Thank you. We appreciate your cooperation. We want to ensure that everything complies with community standards." David followed Sarah as she led the group through the garden. Flowers bloomed in vibrant colors, neatly arranged in rows and patterns. The grass was freshly mowed, and small decorative stones lined the paths. Everything looked healthy, well cared for, and inviting. One of the board members bent down to examine a row of marigolds. "These are well maintained," she said. "But I noticed some new plants over here. Are these approved?" Sarah smiled. "Yes. All of the plants are approved varieties. I can provide documentation if needed." Another member examined the lawn carefully, measuring the height of the grass with a small ruler. "Very precise," he muttered. "It seems you follow the rules closely." David tried to suppress a laugh. It felt unusual to see grown adults measuring grass and inspecting flowers so seriously. He glanced at Sarah, who kept a calm and friendly demeanor throughout. Finally, the president walked to the center of the garden. Mrs. Thomas, Mr. Thomas, he said, we are satisfied with your property. Everything is in compliance. Thank you for your patience and cooperation. David felt a wave of relief. Thank you, he said politely. We are happy to maintain the standards and contribute to the beauty of the neighborhood. The board members left with smiles and polite waves, and David and Sarah watched as they walked down the street. Well, David said, shaking his head, that was an unusual experience. Sarah laughed softly. It was, yes, but it shows that being patient, polite, and cooperative works every time. The HOA was ready to find a problem, but we showed them everything was fine. They left satisfied. For the next few days, the couple focused on their home and garden. They planted new flowers, organized their patio, and enjoyed quiet walks around the neighborhood. Maplewood Estates felt calm again, and David appreciated the simple joys of life with Sarah. One afternoon, as David and Sarah were watering their flowers, a neighbor approached them. Hi, David. Hi, Sarah, she said cheerfully. I wanted to ask, I heard about the HOA visits. How did you handle everything so calmly? I would have been nervous. David smiled and gestured toward Sarah. It's mostly Sarah. She handled the situation with calmness and confidence. It's amazing what a little patience and understanding can do. Sarah laughed lightly. Thank you, but it's about treating everyone politely, showing cooperation, and remaining calm. That makes a difference. The neighbor nodded thoughtfully. I think we could all learn from that. Maybe the HOA will be easier to deal with if more residents follow your example. As the neighbor walked away, David turned to Sarah. No, I think our approach has actually changed the neighborhood. People are more relaxed now. Even the HOA seems more reasonable. Sarah smiled. Yes, calmness and cooperation are contagious. When one person sets an example, others notice. Life becomes easier for everyone. A few days later, the couple received an invitation from the HOA for a neighborhood event, a gardening competition. The letter was friendly, encouraging all residents to participate and show their creativity. David looked at Sarah with surprise. They want us to join a competition after all the inspections? Sarah laughed softly. It's a positive step. They want to encourage participation, not cause trouble. This could be fun. David nodded slowly. I suppose so. It might be a good way to connect with neighbors and enjoy our garden. On the day of the competition, the neighborhood gathered at a large open park. Tables were set up for each participating household, and judges walked around to view the gardens and landscaping. David and Sarah's display was neat and colorful, reflecting the care they had put into their home garden. As the judges approached, Sarah explained their choices politely and clearly. We chose plants that bloom at different times to keep the garden colorful all year, she said. We also organized paths and decorations for a balanced look. The judges nodded appreciatively. Your presentation is excellent. The care and thoughtfulness in your garden are very evident. David watched quietly, feeling proud of their teamwork. Sarah's calm explanation and friendly approach impressed not only the judges but also the other neighbors. Many came over to compliment the arrangement, asking questions about the plants and decorations. By the end of the event, the HOA announced the results. David and Sarah had won first place in the neighborhood gardening competition. Applause and cheers filled the park, and several neighbors came to congratulate them personally. David smiled at Sarah. I never expected a gardening competition to turn into such a happy experience. Sarah laughed lightly. It is proof that cooperation, calmness, and effort are always noticed. People respond positively when they see care and thoughtfulness. The couple returned home that evening carrying small prizes and gifts from the HOA. Their garden, once the subject of inspections, was now celebrated. David felt a deep sense of satisfaction. As they relaxed on the porch, David turned to Sarah. We really have transformed things here. The HOA, the neighbors, and even the community itself. Everything feels better now. Sarah nodded. Yes, challenges often turn into opportunities. We handled the inspections calmly, participated positively, and now the neighborhood sees the good in cooperation. Life is better for everyone. David smiled, watching the sun set over Maplewood Estates. He realized that the events with the HOA, the police, and the meetings had taught him an important lesson. Patience, kindness, and calm communication could resolve almost any problem and even create new opportunities. That evening, as the lights of their home glowed warmly against the darkening sky, David and Sarah sat together, feeling proud of their accomplishments. Their home was not just a place of comfort, it had become a symbol of cooperation, understanding, and community spirit. David leaned back in his chair and sighed contentedly. I never imagined that dealing with the HOA could be this rewarding. Sarah smiled. It is, isn't it? Sometimes challenges are disguised as opportunities. When handled wisely, they bring people together and create positive outcomes. The couple enjoyed the quiet of the evening, knowing that Maplewood Estates was not just a neighborhood, it was a community they helped strengthen. The events of the past weeks had transformed the way they approached challenges and strengthened the bond between them, showing that life's obstacles could always be handled with calmness, understanding, and teamwork. A few weeks after winning the gardening competition, life in Maplewood Estates had returned to a peaceful rhythm. The sun shone gently over the streets, children played in their yards, and neighbors greeted each other warmly. David and Sarah had become respected and admired in the community, known for their calmness, kindness, and ability to handle challenges with grace. One bright Saturday morning, David was organizing his tools in the garage when Sarah called him from the porch. David, you should come see this. He stepped outside, curious, and found Sarah pointing toward the street. A small group of neighbors had gathered, smiling and carrying decorations. Some held baskets of flowers, while others had colorful ribbons and signs. It seemed something special was happening, though David had no idea what. A neighbor approached and smiled warmly. David, Sarah, we wanted to thank you for everything you've done for the neighborhood. You've shown us the power of calmness, patience, and cooperation. Today we want to celebrate you both with a small community gathering. David felt a wave of surprise and gratitude. A celebration for us? Sarah laughed softly. It's very kind of everyone. We didn't expect this. The neighbors quickly set up tables with refreshments, flowers, and small decorations along the sidewalk in front of David and Sarah's house. Children carried handmade cards and neighbors chatted, laughing and sharing stories. It was clear that the community wanted to show appreciation, and the atmosphere was full of warmth and positivity. David and Sarah stood together, feeling touched by the gesture. I can't believe this, David said softly. We didn't do anything extraordinary. We just tried to handle things calmly and politely. Sarah smiled and took his hand. That is extraordinary in its own way. We showed everyone that challenges can be solved peacefully and with understanding, and now the neighbors see the difference it makes. As the gathering continued, the HOA president arrived, smiling warmly. Mr. and Mrs. Thomas, he said, we wanted to personally thank you. Your approach during recent events has set a standard for the entire community. It has brought neighbors closer and created a more positive environment for everyone. We are grateful for your example. David nodded politely. Thank you. We are happy to contribute to the neighborhood and to show that calm communication works better than tension. Sarah added, it is important for everyone to understand that cooperation benefits the whole community. We are pleased to see the positive changes in Maplewood Estates. The president smiled. Indeed, and we hope that this celebration reminds everyone that respect and understanding are key to a happy community. The neighbors cheered, and the atmosphere grew even more joyful. David and Sarah walked among the residents, greeting them warmly and sharing stories. The children presented them with handmade gifts, including colorful drawings of flowers and houses. Some neighbors gave small plants as tokens of appreciation, which David and Sarah promised to plant in their garden. As the afternoon passed, David reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. It had begun with a police visit prompted by an HOA complaint, followed by meetings, inspections, and even a gardening competition. Each event had tested their patience and composure, yet they had handled every challenge calmly and thoughtfully. Sarah, David said quietly as they stood near their front porch, I never imagined that a few complaints and inspections could lead to something so positive. Look at everyone. The neighborhood is happier, more connected, and we're part of that change. Sarah smiled warmly. It shows that every challenge can be an opportunity. We handled everything with patience, understanding, and respect. The community noticed, and now they appreciate the value of calm communication. David nodded. I feel proud of what we've accomplished, not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us. It's a good feeling. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow across the neighborhood, the neighbors started to leave, waving and thanking David and Sarah once more. The couple watched them go, feeling a sense of contentment and gratitude. Later that evening, the two returned to their quiet porch, enjoying the calm after the joyful day. David leaned back in his chair, sipping a cup of tea. You know, he said, we have learned a lot from all of this. Challenges can appear at any time, but the way we handle them can make all the difference. Sarah nodded, smiling softly. Yes, calmness, patience, understanding, and teamwork are powerful. They not only solve problems, but also create opportunities to bring people together. David glanced at the garden, where the flowers they had tended with care bloomed brightly in the fading sunlight. I think our home has become more than just a house. It is a symbol of what cooperation and kindness can achieve. Sarah laughed lightly. Exactly. And the neighborhood now sees that too. Maplewood Estates feels happier and more welcoming because of how we approached each situation. The next morning, David and Sarah took a walk around the neighborhood. Children played in the yards, neighbors waved cheerfully, and even the HOA members greeted them warmly. It was clear that the small challenges they had faced had strengthened the community in unexpected ways. As they walked, a neighbor approached, smiling broadly. David, Sarah, we wanted to invite you to help with a community garden project. Your experience and care for your own garden would be perfect for guiding the neighborhood. David laughed softly. We would be happy to help. It will be a fun way to contribute to the community and encourage everyone to enjoy gardening. Sarah added, it's a wonderful opportunity to continue building a strong, positive community together. The neighbor nodded enthusiastically. We are excited to have your guidance. Your approach has already made a difference, and we know this project will be successful with your help. David and Sarah continued their walk, feeling proud and motivated. The events of the past weeks had taught them valuable lessons about patience, cooperation, and the importance of calm communication. They realized that even small actions, when handled wisely, could have a lasting positive impact on those around them. As they returned home, David glanced at Sarah. I am grateful for everything we have experienced. Each challenge taught us something new, and now we can enjoy the rewards together. Sarah smiled warmly. Yes, and the best part is that we faced every situation as a team. Together, we can handle anything that comes our way. That evening, the couple sat on their porch watching the sunset and enjoying the peaceful neighborhood they had helped shape. The events with the HOA, the police visit, and the gardening inspections now seemed like lessons that had led to growth, understanding, and stronger community bonds. David turned to Sarah and said softly, I think we have created something wonderful here. A neighborhood where people feel respected, supported, and happy. And it all started with staying calm and handling things thoughtfully. Sarah nodded, taking his hand. It is proof that kindness, patience, and cooperation can create positive change. Life will always have challenges, but how we respond makes all the difference. As night fell, the streets of Maplewood Estates grew quiet, the houses glowing warmly with lights from inside. David and Sarah sat together, feeling content, knowing that their calmness, wisdom, and teamwork had turned a series of challenges into a story of success, unity, and happiness. For David, the journey had been unforgettable. From the first police visit to the community picnic, the gardening inspections, and the celebrations, every moment had strengthened his bond with Sarah and with the neighborhood. They had learned that patience, understanding, and kindness could transform difficulties into opportunities. Sarah looked at him and smiled. No matter what comes next, we can handle it together. That is the true reward of these experiences. David nodded, feeling a deep sense of peace. Yes, together we are stronger, and our home, our garden, and our neighborhood reflect that strength. With that, they enjoyed the quiet of the evening, knowing that Maplewood Estates had become a better, happier, and more connected community because of the calm, thoughtful, and positive approach they had taken.